Hey guys, it's my very first YouTube live, so welcome. First YouTube live, but I do Instagram lives a lot. However, I think I'm going to show up here more. So what I want to talk about today is finding trust in therapy, when specifically therapy may have been the place where your trust was severed. Because that's a conundrum and a half, especially when we tend to just kind of throw out there super casually at one another. You need to go to therapy. You need to go sit down somewhere and work on your shit. So this has come to me from a comment that I got on my Instagram, and I want to read it to you as if it's like a little love letter. Keep it as anonymous as possible, unless you creep my Instagram through all the comments and find it yourself. In which case, hey, I'm proud of you. So it feels at this point, this is the beginning of this little letter / comment. It feels at this point like my sense of self is so complexly structured, and like I have spent such a very long time being this version of myself, learning how to move, survive, and try to thrive in the world as quote unquote me, that the idea of deconstructing that in a place like therapy feels almost threatening. Ooh, that's some good stuff right there. That gives me a good indicator of where this person is at when they're writing this. To continue with their words, there's some very complex and unpleasant shit at the core of me, but I have somehow managed to cobble together a reasonably fulfilling life. I don't know how much I'm willing to put it all under the microscope. At what cost, Like, what is the cost to gain ratio here? End of quote unquote letter. This is like a huge topic in a lot of ways, because it brings up the concept of trust. It brings up the competency of your therapist, and it also brings up like where the desire for seeking help is coming from in the first place. So if this is coming from a pure desire to help some aspect of yourself and it's just coming from your heart, that's great. Where I get like a little bit about this person in particular is where they say, like, my life's not all that bad. I have done some really great things. So sometimes, not all of us, but parts of us bring ourselves to therapy because it's like a voice that we've internalized from someone, maybe a particular individual, mom, dad, or typical examples, or even like a spouse, someone really close to you and who plays a really big part in your life. Sometimes they're unintentionally kind of planting the seed, making us feel like we should go get on top of our shit, when actually it's not a deep desire of our own. Another source of being blackmailed or gaslit, I suppose. Not really gaslighting, but it's close. The effect feels like it. Is just society at large. Our culture absolutely loves to make us think that we're fucked up. This is a huge place where, for myself, it helps to pause here a lot with the clients I work with really anyone at all. Anyone at all. It's just like, what are we actually doing here? What actually brought us here? What's driving our desire to do the work? And a lot of times, maybe we are pushing ourselves a little too hard trying to fix when there's nothing that fundamentally needs fixing. So that's a good place to just start reflecting. Like, do you even need to be doing this whole therapy journey? Or is there kind of like an extra aggressive internalized belief that is making you want to do the thing? And sometimes that is exactly what you find out in a healing space. But I'll pause it. I'll just like post that little question for inquiry at the top of this, because this person has been like, yeah, it's not all that bad. Sometimes we say that as defense, sometimes not. So here's also what I want to say to this, because there's a lot of indication here to me that when this person was writing this, the part of them that was writing this is actually the wound itself. So this doesn't sound like I'm hearing someone's heart. This sounds like Some part of them that was wounded at some point in their past is composing the question itself. So, of course, if this person was in front of me, if this was an actual coaching session I had with somebody, I would always check in with them to make sure that's true. But from here, I'm going to assume some things. There's some signs that I see in here that make me believe this person is in their wound. That's how I refer to it. You can call it in your trauma response, whatever words you pick. I think you get the general vibe. So here's some things. First of all, a really beautiful point in here was that this person says the idea of deconstructing feels almost threatening. So he's identifying this feels freaking terrifying. So some internal protectors are already popping up for this person. And this doesn't have to mean that you don't have to, that like going to seek healing with someone is off the table, but instead that it should start right there with the fact that there's a lack of trust in the room. So your healer, guide, therapist, coach, whatever, whomever you end up going with, make sure that they pay attention to the quality of your presence in the moments when you feel a lack of trust. They don't just bulldoze this very real and valid fear that's sitting between you guys. That's my number one thing, is your person whom you choose to work with should be able to tune in to the quality of the presence between the two of you in the room all the time. They should have the ability to have like an energetic kind of bubble around themselves, so that if you as a client are activated, your person is not. They know how to really stay present and grounded with you, truly with you, checking in on you all the time. That's way more important in my mind than giving anyone some fucking grand insight or stellar piece of advice or helping them map out some perfect vision board for their future. Quality of presence beats everything. So this person is calling it out in themselves. They're like, I straight up have some protectors here. Whenever we have our protectors up like this, like imagine like a little man holding a spear and a shield, we're in the wound. The wound wants to be safe. It feels threatened. This person's identifying that. That's amazing. And so I hope if any of you guys are going into any, like we're talking interviews, even for a therapist or a coach, clarity calls. It sounds so Instagram-ish to say that. But yeah, the first time you are meeting these people, like make sure they are up to your standards. They should not just, don't just ask about like, oh, what modalities do you use, but pay attention. How are they showing up? Do they actually seem grounded, or are they just overly excited to explain to you the epic results they get with people, or the really fun, crazy modalities they use to get you there? Because that's not the point. You want someone moving nice and slow and really tuning into you. So if you can feel the presence of your person, that's fantastic. And that's really like, this is all about relationship navigation. It's the essence of this question. Some other ways that I can infer that this person is in the wound is, first of all, the wound is black and white. It's our black and white thinker. It's saying, like, what's the cost to gain ratio? Is this going to help me or not? What's the freaking point? How do I know that you're going to keep me safe, person? And in the wound, we often meet kind of like little smatterings of our mother wound or our father wound. Typically, like to me, this is sounding a bit like mother wound. I have the same thing. So by no means am I judging anyone. We all have mother wounds because we all have a mother. Whether or not she's present, doesn't matter. But sometimes it's in the way that we want our coach, guide, whoever to be so perfect. And we might have these little indications. Some part of us wants to be saved in the healing space. Some part of us doesn't ever want the guide to fuck up, ever. And we may not know this consciously. Like for me, I didn't know that I was holding my coaches up to really, really honestly like inhuman standards until they would unintentionally drop me and I would be pissed at them beyond belief. And sometimes the relationship would end because trust was severed, it was abrupt. That's another indication that like trust is a little bit off, and the wound is the one leading the therapy relationship, is when we just can't tolerate this person in front of us fucking up. So here's a little bit of unfortunate news, but your coach and your guide and your therapist, this sounds weird to say, but they don't actually owe you perfect safety. Nobody does. Not your job, not your union, not your therapist, not your mom, not your dad, not the universe. No one, nothing owes us perfect safety, because it just can't be promised. It simply cannot be embodied. It can't be lived. Instead, where a sense of self-protection comes from is in the ability to bring up anything and everything to your person in a way that is actually genuine for you and self-responsible, so that it's not just blaming and venting. So the irony, I suppose, of being on the hunt or kind of being in between therapists, guides, coaches, is that you have to already be doing a form of the work along the way. So here's the thing with life, is like it's consistently demanding. It never stops being the most intense teacher of all time. That's how I experience it anyway. It's like it's the teacher that never ever stops being just epically challenging. And you don't get a sense too, like when you experience this kind of challenge, you're like, it doesn't hate me. It just like is always humbling and always bests me in some way. And that is fundamentally safe, although sometimes it's a real fucking kick in the pants to realize that along the journey, we're not entitled to total safety. So, in hindsight, for me, maybe some of you guys will agree, it was the moments with my therapist, and I've been pretty epically dropped by, in particular, one therapist who was not trauma informed in any capacity. It was awful. So, like, yes, did she do some damaging things? Yes. Would I wish it upon anyone? Hell no. Am I sitting here saying, like, you need to take lessons from all of those terrible experiences you've had in therapy? Because sometimes, like, we undergo abuse in therapy in the safest places in the world, where we are literally showing up as our most vulnerable selves, sometimes without knowing it. Sometimes we do experience absolutely atrocious things that 100% should not have happened. But here's the thing, is that they do anyway. So from that, we do have to very slowly, at your own pace, find new ways in and constantly reaffirm and reassert in our behavior the belief that we can still keep seeking love no matter what. It is so fucking hard. If you have anyone in your life who can even be your venting person along the path of finding your next guide, coach, therapist, whomever, like, have people in your corner, even for the process of finding your next person. Whew, because that's part of the work too. It is a lot like the beginning phases of dating. Like, think about it. You're basically doing everything intensely intimate with this person except for the sexual and romantic stuff. But the rest is like epic. And I also want to remind you guys, you do not owe your healer, guide, whomever, anything about your past. If you have to spend the first entire year worth of your program or sessions or whatever you can get your hands on just slowing down to regain trust in the kind of dynamic that exists in a healing relationship, do it, because that's actually powerful and that's actually what you need. There is no point in getting the wounded ego to try to solve for your whole childhood when in front of that kind of like intellectual desire to have things figured out and sorted out is a really scared version of you who just does not trust the person in front of you, because you'll be performing your healing in front of them. I fucking guarantee it. Guarantee it. You will be performing everything. I was with my therapist for 2 years, specifically the one that was not trauma-informed, that did drop me, that really hurt my soul in some ways. And 2 years, I made some progress, not none. But man, it was minimal. And I think a lot of it was unintentional, as opposed to experiencing some really fantastic coaches I've had. Really profound moments of presence with these strangers, which is really heart-opening and really connecting. Ideally, I would love for you guys to aim to leave a therapy session, not with all the answers, not looking for that kind of stuff, but instead leaving the room with a different quality of presence in your nervous system and your body. Knowing that this person is there for that kind of work, not just spoon feeding you answers and analyzing your parents and all that stuff, because that is an intellectualization of a really precious process, in my opinion. And it's just not the way. So this person's wound, I believe, in this little comment, is the one writing it. And so if this person came to me and this is what they said, or if this is what I received, like on an intake form, I would start right there. We are doing nothing but learning about trust, learning about what it actually means to trust this person and for them to trust me, and slowing them down a lot, both in the way they talk, probably doing things that are not talking for a long time, or asking indirect questions about this person or about their past, because the context is just not really needed. It's not really the thing. So this kind of thing, I want you guys to know, it's perfect. It's a perfect place to start. You don't have to hide the fact that you don't trust your therapist. That is exactly the doorway in. And a really strong healer will 100% be able to take not only your feedback about them, but even help you work through the pent up anger that you rightfully have if you've been mistreated in the past. So if you watch this in playback, let me know if you have any comments or questions, or if anything is unclear. Because I am always willing to chat with anyone who is leaving a kind, considerate comment down below. So I mentioned many times I got this comment from Instagram. If you'd like to join me over there, I'll leave the link down below. And if you are interested in a little clarity call with me, I do coaching for fellow humans who experience symptoms of nervous system dysregulation on the daily, who might call themselves someone with complex trauma. If you experience really repressed or explosive emotions, that's my wheelhouse. So I use somatics, I use shadow work, I use internal family systems, but my number one modality is none of the modalities, and it's high quality presence, my friend, because that's what we need after enduring years and years of, relationships that are full of a lack of trust, after going to therapy and having our hearts stomped on. We need to really slow ourselves down and get into a conscious, high quality presence with another human being and relearn this whole relationship thing. So if you're interested in working with me, I will also link the page that's all about my program down below. Thanks for watching my first live, if you do, and I will see you guys very soon. Peace.